Welcome to our fourth in-season flag football training module. This one's going to focus on more advanced penalty enforcement concepts. We already had a module on basic enforcement, so this hopefully will fill in the gaps and clarify some things moving forward. We'll start with double fouls. Remember that if both teams commit live ball fouls and either there is no change of possession, there is a change of possession, but the team that has the ball last fouls prior to the final change of possession, or there is a change of possession and the team who has the ball last accepts the penalty for their opponent's foul. In any of those cases, the penalties are canceled or offset and the down is replayed. It's a simple double foul. So it could be as easy as illegal contact offense, pass interference defense. Those penalties will offset, replay whatever down. However, if each team fouls during a down in which there is a change in possession, the team who has the ball last could keep the ball provided that their foul did not occur prior to the last change of possession during the down and provided it declines all live ball penalties against an opponent. So, for example, we have illegal contact against the offense, there's an interception, and then during the return, Team B flag guards. B could keep the ball in that case provided they decline the penalty for the illegal contact, which would result in our enforcement of the flag guarding penalty, and it would be first and short zone line to gain for B at that point. Please note additionally that post-scrimmage kick or PSK fouls are also covered under the clean hands rule. We just treat R as the team in possession, even though they are not technically in possession until the kick ends. And that PSK foul would occur during the kick. We'll talk about PSK here in a minute. So let's dig into post-scrimmage kick or PSK fouls. It's important to note that there's basically a checklist for post-scrimmage kick enforcement, and it only applies if all four of the following criteria are met. 1, the foul has to be by R, and it has to be on R's side of the neutral zone. This means that the foul for R crossing the line of scrimmage before the ball is kicked is not subject to post-scrimmage kick enforcement. 2, the foul has to take place during the interval between the snap and the end of the kick. So once the kick is over, we're not any longer dealing with a post-scrimmage kick foul. 3, the punt has to end beyond the neutral zone. And 4, K does not have possession of the ball when the kick ends. If any of those elements is missing, we use the previous spot as the basic spot. But if all of those elements are met, all those conditions are met, this meets the criteria of a PSK or post-scrimmage kick foul, and we utilize the end of the kick as the basic spot. It's important to note that we will utilize the all but one principle, but the basic spot for enforcement in this case is where the kick ends, and we treat R like the offense, even though at the time of the foul, by definition, they were not the offense. It's important also to note that if the kick ends in Team R's end zone and is a touchback, we utilize the 14-yard line as the basic spot for post-scrimmage kick fouls. So let's take a look at some example plays that illustrate post-scrimmage kick fouls. So on this play, we have a snap and a punt. The punt is caught at the 10-yard line by the receiving team. And during the kick, we have holding by R at the R35-yard line. And then the kick is returned to approximately the R23-yard line where the player who returned the kick is deflagged. Does this meet post-scrimmage kick criteria? The answer is yes. It's a foul by the receiving team. We can just go right down the list of those four items and check them all off. And this foul occurred beyond the end of the kick, which means we're going to enforce this penalty from the end of the kick, which is the 10-yard line. So it will be 1st and 20 to gain for R, who will now become A, from their own 5-yard line. Here's another example. Here we have a snap and a kick that again is caught at the 10-yard line. During the kick, we have illegal contact by a member of the kicking team at the R35-yard line, where R then runs to the 23-yard line where they are deflagged. This is not a post-scrimmage kick foul. This is a foul by the kicking team, which we know already means that it does not meet all of our criteria for a post-scrimmage kick foul. That means R's options are to accept the penalty, means to replay the down with enforcement from the previous spot because it's a loose ball play otherwise, or they could accept the ball at the 23 and decline the penalty. But there is no option for us to tack this penalty on. So on this play, we're going to have another snap and a kick. This kick is going to be much shorter and is going to be caught by the receiving team at their own 25-yard line. During the kick, however, there was a foul for illegal contact by the receiving team way back at the R10. And I realize that this is unlikely on punt plays, but I'm using it to illustrate a point, and that point relates to post-scrimmage kick fouls and the all-but-one principle. The kick returner then returns the ball all the way to the K30 where they're deflagged. On this play, we have a post-scrimmage kick foul. It meets our criteria, and the foul was behind the end of the kick, which means that we would enforce it from the spot of the foul, and it would, after half the distance to the goal enforcement from the 10, be 1st and 20 to gain from the 5-yard line. And here's our final post-scrimmage kick example. On this play, this snap and kick goes into the end zone. Remember, as soon as it breaks the plane of ours goal line, it's a touchback. But while the kick was still in the air, we had a foul for illegal contact at the 10-yard line by a member of the receiving team. Again, this does meet our criteria for post-scrimmage kick enforcement. Here, the post-scrimmage kick spot is the 14-yard line because the play resulted in a touchback. The penalty is behind that spot at the 10. So yet again, we're going to have 1st and 20 to gain from the 5-yard line for the receiving team. So let's carry on with some special enforcements. Here's roughing the passer. Remember that the penalty for roughing the passer on a completed forward pass will always be enforced from the dead ball spot if the run ends beyond a scrimmage line and there is no change of possession. If a change of possession did occur or the run ended behind a scrimmage line, we would enforce the penalty 10 yards in a previous spot. But for example, we have roughing the passer. The pass is caught in advance to the 40-yard line. We could enforce the penalty 10 yards from the 40. If, however, we snapped at the 14 and the pass was either caught and a player deflagged behind the line of scrimmage or incomplete, we would enforce that penalty at the previous spot with an automatic first down. Additional enforcement things to keep in mind. Remember that no penalty can take the ball more than half the distance to the offending team's goal. Obviously, for us, with only 10 and 5-yard penalties, this is pretty straightforward. Inside the 20, it applies for 10-yard penalties, and it applies inside the 10 for 5-yard penalties. In either of those cases, if it would go more than half the distance mechanically, we walk all the way back to the goal line, counting the number of steps, and then come halfway back out. So get in that habit. If we're at the 18-yard line, we'll walk 18 steps back to the goal line and then come 9 yards forward to enforce that half the distance penalty. Also important to note that anytime we disqualify a player, the penalty associated with the disqualification could be declined, but the player who is disqualified still would have to be removed from the game. There is no option to allow that player to continue just because the penalty is declined. Additional enforcement options. Remember, if the offense ever commits a foul in its own end zone, accepting the penalty will result in a safety. There is one exception to that, and that is in the newly created illegal mail reception foul, because the statement of the penalty includes that it is always enforced from the previous spot. So even if that pass were to be caught in the end zone, if the penalty for the foul were accepted, it would be enforced at the previous spot. Note that if a defensive foul occurs that has end of the run enforcement, but the run ends in the end zone, the goal line is used for measurement. We could be in a situation where a quarterback or a ball carrier is sacked in his or her own end zone, but there was illegal contact against the defense. We would utilize the goal line as our basic enforcement spot. We don't care where specifically in the end zone that player was deflagged. As far as forfeiture is concerned, if once the referee decides to forfeit a game, that decision is final and cannot be declined or overturned by subsequent action. Another special enforcement situation is kick-catch interference, or KCI. Please note that if the kicking team commits KCI, the receiving team has 3 options, one of which is the result of the play. They obtain that option by simply declining the penalty. A second option is a 10-yard penalty from the previous spot and a replay of the down. It's important to note in that case it would be K's ball again. Or they could accept a 10-yard penalty from the spot of the foul. So spot of the foul plus 10. In that case, it would be R's ball. So it's important to explain that to receiving teams, because they may prefer the result of the play. If they gain more than 10 yards on the return, they would probably not want the 10-yard penalty from the spot of the foul and maintaining the ball. Their options would there probably more straightforward be to decline the penalty or to make the kicking team kick again. When it comes to establishing the zone line to gain following penalty enforcement, it's important to know our order of occurrence here. For both live ball fouls and dead ball fouls that occur prior to a ready for play, we're going to mark off the penalty yardage and then establish the zone line to gain. So for example, it's 2nd and 2 at the team A 38-yard line, and the player for A runs for 15 yards and flag guards. If that flag guard brings them back behind the 40, then they would not have achieved a new line to gain, and it will not be a new series for A. We would be continuing that series following enforcement. If, however, the flag guard after enforcement brought them to beyond the 40, say to the B 38-yard line, then it would be first down. The zone line to gain would be B's 20-yard line. That applies additionally to dead ball fouls prior to the ready for play. That could be an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, or it could potentially be an illegal snap or delay of game, more so a delay of game than an illegal snap prior to the ready for play. This is a tactic that some teams use when they gain the first down by less than 5 yards. So let's say, for example, a team gets past their own 20-yard line, is deflagged at the 22 for a first down and 40 to gain. Up until we signal for the ready for play and blow the whistle as a referee, we have a first down with no attached line. It's not until we blow the ready for play that the line is established. So if Team A were to snap the ball prior to the ready for play, 5-yard penalty would bring them back behind the near 20. It would still be first down. It would in fact be first and short. That's why we want to always make sure that we ask the offended team whether they want to accept or decline the penalty. We could also be in a situation where, let's say, Team A from their own 14-yard line completes a very long pass, and a player is deflagged all the way down at B's 35-yard line, 5 yards beyond the 40, and then after the play, we have a flag for taunting. They end up taunting an opponent. That brings them back to their own 35 and makes the 40 the short line, and that therefore the line to gain. Again, we don't establish it until we blow the ready for play. So in the last item here, dead ball fouls after the ready, we'll establish the zone line and then mark off the penalty yardage. So for example, team gains enough yards for a first down, and they now have the ball 1st and 40 to gain at their own 23-yard line. Once we blow the ready for play, we've established the 40-yard line as the line to gain. If there's a foul like a false start, which would be a dead ball after the ready for play, that now takes them back to their own 18-yard line. It is now double stakes with the 40-yard line to gain. So again, timeline is important here. So please understand the difference between these three types of fouls. Let's talk about fouls that occur during the last play of a period. Note that succeeding spot fouls that occur either during the last play of the game, during the last play of an overtime period, or any dead ball fouls that occur after the last play of the game or said overtime period can be carried over into the overtime. There is one exception to that, and that is if that last play in question was a touchdown. In that case, the penalty can only be enforced on the try and can't be bridged past the try into the overtime. That is because we don't know if there will be a need for an overtime period or a further overtime period until after the try, so that penalty would have to be enforced on the try. Now let's shift our focus to fouls during touchdowns specifically. Note that if there's a foul by the scoring team that is not unsportsmanlike or non-player during a down which results in a touchdown, simply accepting the penalty nullifies the score. Here's an example. 2nd and goal for A from B's 13-yard line. During a touchdown run, A3 flag guards at B's 2. Simply put, accepting that penalty means there's no score. We would enforce the penalty from the 2, and it would now become 2nd and goal at B's 12. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. If there's a foul by an opponent of the scoring team that is not unsportsmanlike or non-player during a touchdown scoring play, and there was not a change of possession during the down, Team A can accept the results of the play and then choose to have the foul enforced either on the try or after the try to start their opponent's series at the 14-yard line. This is a very distinct enforcement because it's the difference between scoring and not scoring determines whether or not we carry a foul over. Let me give you an example, and then we'll talk about the example outlined here in a minute on the slide. So let's say it is 3rd and goal from the 20-yard line going in. We have a flag down for defensive pass interference, but the pass is caught. If that pass were caught for a touchdown, we could enforce that 10-yard penalty either on the try or from the 14-yard line to start B's series. If, however, that pass were caught anywhere short of the goal line, we would not tack on pass interference. The options would be to enforce that penalty from the previous spot or to decline the penalty and take the results of the play. A challenging decision to make on third down, potentially going into fourth down, but note that it is because there was a touchdown on this play that we can have some carryover enforcement. Here's another example. 2nd and goal from B's 13-yard line. During a touchdown run, B2 holds A3 at B's 2. In this case, it is a touchdown. A then has the option to enforce the penalty either on the try or to start B's series at the 14-yard line. To carry this philosophy a little bit forward, if we do have a change of possession during a down in which a touchdown is scored, but a foul is committed by the opponent of the scoring team after the change of possession, the scoring team can accept the results of the play and then choose to have the foul enforced on the try or after the try at the 14-yard line. However, if the team would have to decline the penalty in order to keep possession of the ball, they would also have to decline the penalty in order to keep the points on the board. So here are two examples that indicate the difference here. During B3's interception return for a touchdown, A4 legally contacts B2 at the 40. Ruling, touchdown. B can elect to enforce the penalty either on the try or to start A series at the 14-yard line. However, in the second play, prior to the interception for a touchdown, A4 commits offensive pass interference at the A's 30-yard line. In that case, since B has to decline A's foul to keep the ball, they would also have to do so to keep the touchdown, and therefore there would be no carryover enforcement. It is also important to note that if there is an unsportsmanlike or non-player foul committed by either team during a down in which a touchdown is scored, the opponents can accept the results of the play and then have that penalty enforced either on the try or from the 14-yard line. Here's an example. During a touchdown run, A2 starts high-stepping at B's 10-yard line and is flagged for unsportsmanlike conduct. That is still a touchdown, and then B has the choice to enforce the penalty on the try or to start B series at the 14-yard line. That is up to them. Please do note it is possible that we could have a foul against each team that fits this criteria. For example, let's say we had defensive pass interference on this play and then A2 high steps at the 10-yard line. We would then go order of occurrence with the teams to determine which penalty would be enforced first, because otherwise we just keep going back and forth. So in the play I just mentioned, we have pass interference against B, so we're going to ask A if they would like the penalty to be enforced on the try or from the 14-yard line. Let's say they select the 14-yard line. Then we talk to B about the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. B could then elect to take it on the try. A cannot now change their mind and have the penalty enforced on the try. Once we've talked to them and gotten their answer, we're done with them as far as relates to penalty enforcement. They could change their try value based on the foul that was selected by taking a timeout, but they can't change their enforcement options. So now we've talked about touchdowns, let's shift our focus to tries. If after a touchdown and prior to the initial ready for play signal on the try, either team commits any foul for which basic enforcement is from the succeeding spot for a penalty, the offended team may have the penalty enforced either at the succeeding spot on the try or following the try at the 14-yard line. So this is pretty simple. I score a touchdown, I spike the ball, I'm flagged. B then could elect to have the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty enforced either on the try or to start B's series. Note, however, that if the foul occurs during the try, this is different. And the reason it's different is because every down that's not a try only involves action from the snap to the end of the play. But a try down runs from the time we blow the ready for play on a try through the end of the try. So the window is a little different on try downs. Note that if there's a foul by A that is other than unsportsmanlike or non-player during a down which results in a successful try, accepting the penalty nullifies the score. It's also important to note that we will replay the down following enforcement, and we would enforce that penalty in a standard manner. But if there's a loss of down foul by A that precipitates a score, there is no score and no replay and no carryover enforcement. So let's say on a try for 2, the quarterback rolls out, steps down, crosses the line of scrimmage, and throws in a legal forward pass for a successful try from the 8-yard line. If that penalty were accepted, in that case, the try would fail, there would be no score, and we would move on to the 14-yard line without additional enforcement. If, however, this was just a simple offensive pass interference situation, we would enforce the penalty and then replay the try, provided the try was successful. If the try is unsuccessful, we're going to automatically decline the penalty if it's against A, because B does not want to retry, because B can't score on tries. Note that if B fouls during a successful try, we will enforce the penalty at the 14-yard line. And note also that if there's a double foul during the down, we will replay the down. So let's talk about multiple fouls, specifically multiple live ball fouls. When a team commits 2 or more live ball fouls during a down, the opponents may only accept 1 penalty. So pretty simply stated, if we have illegal contact against the defense and pass interference against the defense, the offense is only going to be permitted to accept 1 penalty. That's true even if a touchdown is scored on that play. They can still only accept 1. They could decline both. Either of those options would be on the table. As it relates to multiple dead ball fouls, please note that penalties for dead ball fouls are going to be enforced in the order in which they occurred unless they're canceled by an equal dead ball foul by an opponent. This is 10 for 10s for 10s. We will never cancel a 10-yard penalty with a 5-yard penalty. So let's say, for example, we have, after a touchdown, a dead ball personal foul against the offense and then taunting by the defense. Those penalties will cancel each other and ultimately result in an offset, though that's not technically an offset in the traditional sense. Note also that dead ball fouls are not coupled with live ball fouls to create double or multiple fouls. So if we have a situation where Team B is guilty of pass interference on a touchdown scoring play or even not on a touchdown scoring play, and then there's an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty also against the defense, we would enforce both of those penalties. Additionally, back to the earlier point about order of occurrence, we will enforce dead ball fouls in the order of occurrence unless the cancellation provision that I mentioned previously is applicable. So we could have a situation where we have a false start against the offense, and that is followed by taunting by the defense. We would walk 5 yards back against A and then 10 yards forward against B. So now let's talk about the co-rec fouls, and these are special not just because they're only applicable in co-rec games, but because in both penalties, it is very clearly stated that they are enforced at the previous spot, and that's uncommon for live ball fouls that are not simultaneous with the snap to have a separate statement. The first one is illegal male advancement. That's a 5-yard penalty from the previous spot with a replay of the down if accepted. And then illegal male reception is a 5-yard penalty from the previous spot, but also carries a loss of down, and, as stated, the following play will be closed because it happened on a closed play and we can't open the play on illegal male reception. Again, note that these are specifically stated as being enforced in the previous spot, which means specifically in the case of illegal male reception, a safety cannot occur as a result of the penalty for this foul. It could occur as a result of the play ending in the end zone, but even if a Team A passer throws in throws a forward pass to a teammate who's a male in Team A's own end zone, and that qualifies for illegal male reception, if the penalty is accepted, it would be enforced at the previous spot. I hope you found this to clarify a couple of points related to penalty enforcement for flag football. Keep up the great work and keep having a great season.